Hi everyone, my name is Deborah and this is the edit by DH. It has been such a long time since I last filmed and uploaded something due to several reasons. I won't go too much into it, but with all the anti-Asian hate crime going on around the world right now, it's been such a heavy time and I just felt like I couldn't upload content. I just didn't feel like it was right. So it's been a while and I am so happy to be back, and I haven't applied proper makeup in such a long time, so I'm ready to go. Right now I'm pretty barefaced. The only thing I have on is some skincare and a little bit of lip balm, so excuse the makeupless face. I am deliberately barefaced because today I am reviewing the Katie Jane Hughes brush collection in collaboration with Spectrum. I'm so excited, and I'm sure for many of you makeup lovers you've already seen a lot of hype around this. It's sold out, but I think you can still sign up for notifications to be alerted as to when it's back in stock. So this is what it looks like. I am so excited. I haven't even opened this, guys, because I wanted to do it on camera with you as a first impressions video. And as you can see, it's got Katie Jane's face all around it, and it's in a very sturdy box, and at the top it says Spectrum Katie Jane Hughes brushes in honor of the green. And as you will see in just a moment, the brushes are green as well. I have put on a green shirt, so I hope you appreciate the color coordination. So let's open this up. So when you first open it, this is what it looks like. It's in a vegan leather case, and it's this sort of dark olivey kind of color, and it's got two clasps at the side, and it reveals this. So technically you could use it as two separate brush holders. You could use it, to be honest, to display anything else. You could put lip glosses in there, whatever you fancy. And then the brushes are all in this little wrap with the sort of towel, which has got the same logo on it. There is a slight chemical scent to it when you first open it, but that's, I think, quite natural. Just to explain, Katie Jane Hughes obviously is a working makeup artist. I'm sure many of you know that. And so she wanted to create this brush set for people who were professional makeup artists, but also people who just love makeup. So whether you're professional or not, she says she often likes to, have a towel on her shoulder or somewhere, and it enables her to just clean off the pigment of each brush and then blend in the pigment more with a slightly cleaner brush, or she can then use a different color or formula, whatever. And as you can see, there's lots of brushes, 25 in total. I cannot remember how much I paid for them. They were definitely over 100. I'll put the price on the screen now. Plus, if you are a new Spectrum shopper, you get the initial, 10% off. So I did utilize a 10%, which really helps when the cost is over £100. So just be mindful of that. If you signed up for restock alerts, then if you've never purchased from the Spectrum website before, don't forget to utilize the 10% welcome discount. So as you can see, quite a few of the bigger brushes come with this case. And these are things that you can easily buy from Amazon, by the way, if you need a top up, but they're super handy just to keep your brush in shape. And they're also great brush guards for when you go traveling. So you just pop it in from the top, pull it out, and gently push it up, and there you go. So with these brushes, you can see that it's in this really gorgeous green color, the same as the case. And this is apparently made from a sustainable wood. Like I said, all the brushes are synthetic, and each one has got this Spectrum with Katie Jane Hughes collaboration, again embossed in gold. Really looks luxurious actually, and the brushes feel soft. Each brush has got a number, so it doesn't have a name. So some brushes don't have anything on them, some have numbers like this, some have names like foundation brush. The reason that Katie said that she didn't want names on them is because she just wants you to explore your artistry, and these are, at the end of the day, multi-purpose brushes. So she said you could do whatever the hell you want with them. There's no rules really. I've just taken all the brush guards off, and I'll just pop them to the side because I will keep them. There are so many brushes, I don't even know where to start. So let's start with the base and go from there. I'm going to go with the Mer Radiant Skintint in colour Light. So normally I apply this with my fingers, but I do want to see what it's like with a brush application. So I think I'm going to go in with brush number 3. I quite like the fact that it almost looks like a stippling brush. So I've just put some product on the back of my hand. Now this skin tint, it's not supposed to be full coverage, it's very light. But as you will see in just a moment, I am going to go in with the powder as well. If you saw my last video, it was actually specifically on the La Mer skin tint powder. So if that's what you're interested in and you want more details, please do go check it out. I will obviously include the link down below. So I just added a little bit of the Radiant Skin Tint, and I like that it easily buffed in with the brush. I think it did take me a little bit longer than using my hands, because obviously with your hands you can work quicker. If it's a foundation, it's different. I would always use a brush. With a product like a skin tint tinted moisturizer, I always think fingers are best, and especially if you're in a hurry, it's quicker. But I like the fact that it doesn't leave any sort of streaks. That's what I was worried about. You know, with even the traditional sort of flat foundation brush, sometimes it can leave these sort of streaks or lines across the face, and this brush doesn't do that, and it's kind of blended in really nicely. So now I'll move on to the concealer. So I really like the look of brush number 6. Let me just show you properly. For the concealer, it is a little bit wider than the one I normally use, but I like the fact that it's very flat. I'm going in with the Glossier Stretch Concealer, one of my favourites, in G10. So unlike the foundation, this actually just laid down the concealer super quickly, and I love the finish. And it's got a slight point, if you can see, and that just enables you to really be precise with around the eye area. And you could also use it around the nose. So around the nose I do get a little bit of redness. So I really like that. So that's number 6. Then for extra coverage, I always like to go in with my Soft Moisture Powder Foundation by La Mer. And I just like to use it in the areas where I have slightly more pigmentation. So this I will only do if I'm going out somewhere nice and seeing human beings, because otherwise the Radiant Skin Tint is absolutely fine for me day to day. I'm going to go in with number 5, even though it's slightly slanted, and see how I get on with that. I think this would also be quite nice for blush, bronzer, but I'm using it for my powder foundation. There's no texture to the skin. It felt super soft to apply. The only thing I would say is the brush I normally use for powder foundation is quite flat and really sturdy, whereas this one is quite floppy, and I would say a lot of the brushes are quite long and floppy, as you can see, whereas the brush I normally use is quite dense and short bristles and flat, like I said, at the top, so it's quite easy to apply foundation powder. But I really like the way that this feels, and like I said, it hasn't brought up any texture in my skin, which sometimes powder can do. So I'm really happy with the finish. By the way, I am going to come back to some of these brushes, but for now I'm just putting them to the side. So that was the number 5. So next I'm going to go in with some bronzer. I'm going to go in with the Natasha Denona Contour Sculpting Powder in shade Light. And I'm going to go in with the thickest and biggest brush in number 1. I also just like to go in with a little bit extra contour because, listen, with the pandemic and lockdown, I have gained extra pounds. So any sculpting is really a lifesaver for me. I'm going to go in my favourite Kevyn Aucoin sculpting powder in Light. And I'm just going to use the same brush. And with this, I just like to do the cheekbone area. Then before I go on to blush, I just like to go back in with the same powder brush that I used to apply my powder foundation. I just like to sort of blend out the edges, and by having a little bit of powder foundation on the brush, it just helps to soften the edges and make everything look seamless and smooth. So if you've got any harsh edges, it just blends it away. So next up is blush. So I'm going to use the Nars Luster blush, well, the colours Luster, and I think I'll go in with the number 2 brush. With each brush, I feel like it picks up almost the perfect amount of pigment. Not too much, not too little. You know, some brushes you really have to work the brush in to get pigment onto it, and then other brushes you just slightly like bop it and it's like too much, it's too heavy. Whereas with these brushes, I think it picks up just the right amount, and so it's really perfect. I'm then going to go in with highlight. You guys know I love my highlight, so I'm going to use the Pat McGrath Divine Rose SkinFetish Ultraglow highlighter. And I'm going to use brush number 8 for it. Now, brush number 8 is quite special because she's included 2, and I love that because I always use the 2 same brushes, pretty much similar to this shape and brush, one for highlighter and one for setting my powder. So I'm very, very happy about the fact that there's 2 of number 8 and no other brushes, just the number 8. So one I will use for highlight, and I just like to use it on the high points of my cheeks. By using a smaller brush, it just allows you to concentrate the highlight on just the highest points. Then, as I mentioned, I like to use the same brush. Luckily, there's 2 of number 8s. And now I will set my face just where I get a little bit of oiliness. So I'm going to go in with the La Mer Sheer Pressed Powder in shade Light again. I hate applying powder all over my face because I don't feel like it's necessary. If you have really dry skin and you never really get oily or shiny, you don't need powder, and this is a step that you can definitely skip. But as you can see, where I've put the highlighter, my face is still glowy. It's just the areas where I tend to get shiny is now slightly mattified. Having used this brush now, I absolutely love it, and I think I prefer it to the brush I currently use just because it's quite thick. You can see there's a lot of bristles. It's quite a generous brush being so small, and it just picks up the powder so well. It just feels like it's really setting the makeup, if that makes any sense at all. Now for lips and eyes, you can see there are loads of brushes to choose from, so you're really spoilt for choice. I think what brush you use depends on what kind of eye look you're going for, what formula you're using, what liner you're using, so you can really afford to get really creative with this. I think some of the eye brushes will also double up as lip brushes, so again it's back to that multi-purpose use as well. So before I go into my eyes, I'm just going to quickly do my brows. If I really want a natural look, I like to apply some brow powder instead of a brow pencil. The brow brush that I normally use is a Ecru one, and it's angled and it's quite firm, and I really like it for applying powder. There's nothing in here which actually looks like the kind of brush that I would normally prefer. Maybe I would use a number 2, but I don't know. I mean, you can definitely use some of these brushes for brow powder. It's just, you know, when you have a specific preference in the kind of tool or brush that you prefer, and none of these look like that. She actually has a brush that is double-ended, which is a number 23 brush. It's got a great sort of, I would use this for gel liner, and then a spoolie on the end. Now I deliberately didn't use the spoolie with the brow freeze because with the brow freeze it develops this sort of residue when it dries on the brush, and it kind of looks very, I don't know if you can see it on camera, quite white, and I feel like it then ruins the bristles, and I didn't want to do that with this. So I think this would be great for just almost like fluffing up your brows during the day if you want, just something that you use to maintain rather than full product, if that makes sense. Now moving on to the eyes, I'm just quickly going to apply the Nars Tinted Smudge Proof eyeshadow base in colour Light. This is a very good primer. And I think I'll go in with brush number 7 to just blend that in. You can do it with your finger, but I think sometimes using a brush is really nice. So that's the primer done. Then I'm going to go in with a newly acquired Chantecaille Luminescent eye shade. I know it's not a new shade in their collection, but I've had my eye on Chantecaille eye makeup for a while. It's quite expensive, but it's got some, you know, olive tones in there. So I thought it'd be nice to kind of colour coordinate with my theme today. So I'm going to actually go in with the same brush, number 7, and use the side that I didn't use. So it's laid down the eyeshadow really nicely, but actually this is where I kind of want to use this towel. And I'm just going to gently, but quickly, swirl the brush into the towel, and some of the pigment will actually come off, as you can see. It's cleaner. So now I'm going to use this again without adding new eyeshadow powder, just to buff out the edges and make it a bit more seamless. I like the fact that this brush is quite dense and I feel like it packs on the pigment really well. It's a kind of brush I really love for eyeshadow application, and none of the powder has actually dropped underneath, which is amazing. I actually think it will be even great for, you know, when you want to wet your shadow for a more dramatic look. In fact, let's do that. So I'm just going to spray my brush, make it a bit wet, and go back in with the same shadow, because I honestly think it will work really well with this brush as well. It's more of an intense colour and gives this sort of creamy eyeshadow feel, even though it's powder. But as predicted, this brush works beautifully for that. I don't feel like I need to, but if you wanted to blend it out, you could either use the number 1 or 11. To be honest, you can use any brush you want, but if I were to give guidance, I would say the number 1 or the 11 brush, just to buff it out. The number 1 is rounder, if you can see, as opposed to the 11, which is sort of flat on the side. So I think I'll go in with the rounder one, number 10 even. So I'm just going to use this to gently do that windscreen wiper motion to softly blend out the edges. Then I'm going to go in with an old Pat McGrath Mercury Pigment shadow, which is, by the way, still absolutely fine to use. I'm going to use my finger. I just found my finger easier to use for this, but if I wanted to do that sort of spot highlight, I would probably go in with one of these two brushes. They pretty much look the same, it's just one's obviously bigger, which is the 18, and then the slightly smaller one is 21. So I'm going to go with a 21 to apply this same shadow underneath, just to give it a bit of a pop. I think finger would be a bit more dramatic, but it's great if you don't want something dramatic actually, and you want something a little bit more subtle. I've deliberately applied a tiny bit underneath my eye just to open it up and give it something zhuzhy. There are so many brushes in here which I think will be fantastic for gel liner. So I'm using the Bobbi Brown, by the way, long wear gel liner in a colour called Caviar ink, which looks black, but actually it's a dark brown. There are so many brushes where I think they would really work for a liquid or gel liner. So firstly, the pointy ones. They look exactly the same. One is just longer than the other. So the longer one is brush number 24, and then the shorter one is 22. So this is great if you really want to be really dramatic, or you know, when you want to create really funky eyeliner shapes and go beyond the conventional eyeliner thing. This is more conventional and great if you want to create a really fine thin line, for example. There is also this brush which looks like a really cute paintbrush, and it's number 9. Again, this will be great as an eyeliner brush, but I think this would be a great brush, so I'm going to go in with a 23 for my gel liner. So I've just done my liner. So my thoughts on this brush, I think that it's perfect for creating that sleek flick. It's so easy to create that knife edged liner without the need to use like a thin cotton bud, which is what I'd normally do. I'd just use it to clean up the liner. I didn't need to do it because this was so easy to use. The only thing I wish was that it was slightly thicker, just because, or slightly denser, because when I then did the main liner, if you want it to be slightly thicker, the liner, because this brush is so thin, you almost need to go over it several times to get that, to lay down the pigment, if that makes sense. That's the only critique I would have about this brush. Otherwise, it was so easy, and it enables you to have control whilst doing that knife edge liner. The only other thing I would say is I kind of wish it was two separate brushes, because as you can see, it's quite a long brush, and when doing liner, I don't know about you guys, I like to really get close to the mirror, but when you're doing this and the mirror's there, you can only go so far because of how long it is. So that's another small critique. Otherwise, I really love this brush. So I'm just going to quickly go off camera, apply some mascara, then I will quickly do lips before giving you my final thoughts on the collection. I just went off camera, applied some mascara, and now my eye look feels complete. So lips is all that's left. So I'm going to go in with the Jason Wu Stay In Line Lip Pencil in colour First Date. Then I'm just going to go in to finish off the look with the Nars Claudette Collection Audacious Sheer Matte Lipstick. Kind of want to blend everything out on my lips, so I'm going to go in with a brush number 16. It's got a square end. So just before I give you my final thoughts, I'm just going to quickly spritz my face and give myself the glowy final look that Katie Jane normally likes. So my final thoughts. I really like the collection. I think the price, the value is incredible, because although 160 sounds like a lot, and it is, if you divide that by the number of brushes, which is 25 brushes, it works out to I think £6.40 or something along those lines, just over £6 per brush, which is so cheap. That's cheaper than Real Techniques, that's cheaper than some Morphe brushes, for instance, but you're getting a higher quality, if that makes sense. If you are getting the 10% discount on top, I think it's like 144 in total, and then if you divide that by 25 brushes, I think that works out to just over £5 for each brush. So it's real value for money. So it's great for if you are a pro and you need extra brushes in your kit, or someone like myself who's a beauty content creator and you're always constantly going through brushes, I would definitely recommend it. If you are somebody that you have one or two random brushes but you would like a complete set, this is perfect for you as a sort of starter kit, and it's got a little bit of everything. However, if you're somebody that already has quite a lot of brushes, you don't do beauty content creation, you don't work as a pro, I personally don't think that you need all these brushes. So Katie did suggest, and it is a good idea, that you could always go halves with a friend, you know, or even 3 friends, you know, you could divide it between 3 of you. It's completely up to you, because obviously that will only make the value even cheaper. Then you can choose between yourselves what brushes you would like. Do these feel luxurious? That is the $1 million question. I would say if you are talking about luxury and luxury brands, specifically Hourglass, Tom Ford, Bobbi Brown, some of the Nars like Pro line brushes, I would say no. They look, feel and smell synthetic. That's one thing I will make clear. However, for synthetic, for really good value brushes, they perform really well. I mean, you can see the final look and how well it's applied. And let me tell you something. People who think that brushes or tools don't matter, you're quite wrong. Like, tools and brushes make the biggest difference in terms of how your makeup applies, how it then settles, and the final look. I am very pleased with the final look. in terms of how my makeup looks overall. And I don't particularly think there's much of a difference in how my makeup looks from how it would normally look with the brushes that I normally use. I feel like some of these brushes are a little bit samey, and I kind of wish there were other brushes that she had substituted it with, because I feel like there are 1 or 2 brushes that would have been better. But having said that, overall, looking at the price, looking at how many brushes you get, looking at the performance, looking at the packaging, it's such good value for money. I keep emphasizing it, but it's true. Do you need it? No. Did it completely blow me away and wow me? No. However, it is a brush set that I would recommend to those people that I mentioned at the beginning. So people who are artists who always need brushes, beauty content people who always need brushes, people who perhaps don't have a lot of brushes and would like a set. Definitely, I would recommend it. I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10, which is still very high, but it's not 10 out of 10. The fact that it's endorsed by Katie in itself is a selling point, but I do think they have performed really well overall. That's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know, guys, down below if you've gotten this collection, and if so, what do you think? If you haven't got it and you've signed up for the restock, what do you now think after seeing my review? Are you still going to get it, or have you changed? Has anything changed your mind? And lastly, what are some of your favorite brushes, like brands wise? Is there any particular brand that you love for brushes? And within those brands, is there any particular one brush that you would recommend? Because by the way, I am always on the lookout for brushes. It's so good to be back. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one soon. Take care. Bye. Wash away the pain and put some makeup on my face, yeah. Butterflies in my stomach, butterflies in my chest.